no plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Fighter like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending. We got no plans.
This is your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net. A comedian in Italy, Beppe Grillo, has had a huge impact on the elections there and is now considered a viable presidential candidate. And perhaps the most amazing part is that most people aren't even shocked by this, because we have now reached a point where people are turning to comedy and comedians for their truth. Every politician we listen to or news anchor we turn on is just spraying a steady stream of diarrhea out of their face holes, and it just coats you until it's dripping off you, and you're like, stop it, make it stop, but it doesn't stop, it just keeps pouring on like the wet cement on the head of a mafia snitch, and once you're frozen into a statue of dried bullshit, they look at you and they say, now, don't forget to vote on Tuesday. So people are now getting their news from The Daily Show or Colbert, The Onion, or Bill Maher, or God forbid, sometimes even me. Welcome to the funeral of the mainstream media. If you want to cry, feel free, because this is fucking sad. We are literally at a point where if your average man was at a state fair and on one side of him was a politician and on the other side of him was a clown, he would turn to the clown and say, tell me how it really is, because this guy over here is full of crap. So here's 15 hugely important things that are not disputable and that you will nearly never hear on the mainstream corporate-owned media. Number 1, America is funding both sides of the war in Afghanistan. Number 2, there's a massive prison industrial complex in this country that makes money from caging human beings. Number 3, there are 900 U.S. military bases around the world. Number 4, most koala bears look snuggly, but they have chlamydia. Number 5, the Federal Reserve is privately owned and the owners make lots of money from it. Number 6, Romney's top 20 donors and Obama's top 20 donors are nearly the same list of corporations. Number 7, the U.S. has only 5% of the world's population and yet holds 25% of the world's prisoners. Number 8, factory farming is the most horrific thing you could ever witness, and if you step inside of one, you'll immediately vomit harder than the girl from Poltergeist watching Newt Gingrich have sex with a key lime pie. Number 9, following the BP oil spill, there have been essentially zero new regulations, policies, or cleanup procedures enacted. It will happen again, and the oil companies just view it as the cost of doing business. Number 10, if Isaac Newton's parents had had access to Ritalin, Isaac Newton would have been a humorless bricklayer, and you would only know his name because after people take a dump, they would sometimes say the expression, I just dropped a load of Newtons. Ironically, it would still have something to do with gravity. Number 11, climate change is very real and is happening more quickly than we thought, and corporations are already gambling on which areas will end up underwater and which new areas will become lovely beachfront property. Number 12, roughly 250,000 black children go missing in the U.S. every year. Unfortunately, they aren't newsworthy. Number 13, top hedge fund managers make more in an hour than a middle-class household makes in a half a fucking century. Number 14, the amount of funding from 4 days of the war in Afghanistan could completely wipe out the deficit of a city like Detroit. Imagine what it could do for many of the smaller bankrupt U.S. cities. Now imagine how much the funding from every day in Afghanistan could do for our country. Number 15, to prepare for her role as Margaret Thatcher, Meryl Streep would snort a line of powdered dolphin every morning. That last one I made up. The rest are true. Well, the Isaac Newton one is hypothetical, but the rest are true. And this list is just scratching the surface. Welcome to the funeral of the mainstream media. If you want to cry, feel free, because this is fucking sad. You can't protect everybody from every danger, yet we seem willing to give away our privacy to allow for government monitoring of phones, emails, letters, and singing telegrams, and we never complain, all in the name of safety. We're fine with the possibility of harm from certain things. Cars kill more people than almost anything. Cigarettes and beer, I think, have killed a few people, if I have that stat right. And fast food shortens the life of our kids, or at least ruins their turn on the seesaw. bar or the chin-up bar. And yet, we have an understanding that we're okay with those risks, with that kind of death. We're willing to take those risks in order to drive a car, drink a beer, eat a regurgitated chicken paste flavored barbecue mesquite nugget ball. We're willing to take those risks. So why give away our right to not go to third base with a TSA agent whom you just met? Because, fellas, no means no, unless you're a TSA agent, and then no means follow us to a room with fewer windows. We deserve privacy. You should be able to talk on the phone with no outside parties listening. You should be able to send that Facebook message of your junk without anyone else downloading it. If you're into erotic puppeteering, then you should be able to watch that YouTube video without an FBI agent giggling to himself in a dark room in Quantico, Virginia. Whatever a consenting adult does with a consenting puppet of a grumpy macaque monkey is their business, as long as that puppet is of age and the love friction created during the session doesn't start a fire. You see, the forefathers had the wisdom to declare that the government did not have the right to stay in people's houses. My bet is they did that not only because the British always reeked of scones and crumpets and wouldn't stop playing the fife and drums even when Bonanza was playing on the 18th century television made from burlap and smallpox. I bet they also made that law because they felt the government didn't have the right to watch everything you do. Some of the frontiersmen probably enjoyed an occasional naked frolic around the maypole and didn't want the government officials snickering about it. My point is, you can't protect everybody from everything all of the time. Some people are gonna die, some people are gonna get broken legs, some people are gonna get their nipples caught in a puppet's mouth. We shouldn't give away our privacy to try and stop every one of these things from ever happening. Life doesn't happen behind plexiglass. I'm Lee Camp, and that's your moment of clarity. Get more of these at leecamp.net.
We got no plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Fighter like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending. We got no...
Everything in our lives now is owned or materialized or commoditized. Your clothes are brought to you by Levi's, and your food's provided by McDonald's, and even life-sustaining water is brought to you by Poland Springs. We have human interaction brought to you by Facebook or Skype, relationships brought to you by eHarmony, love provided by Hallmark, good times brought to you by Heineken, and bad times brought to you by Too Much Heineken, hardcore sex brought to you by Trojan's new icy fire crotch cream, answers to all your problems brought to you by Oprah or Dr. Phil or Judge Judy, laughter brought to you by Tyler Perry's Medea Goes to Fuck a Fiddle, security and or death brought to you by Smith & Wesson, mindless entertainment brought to you by the National Football League, panic and fear brought to you by Fox News, war brought to you by Lockheed Martin and Shell and Exxon and Halliburton and Boeing and Blackwater, and the ability to take your 9-to-5 job and turn it into a 24-hour slave labor camp, brought to you by BlackBerry or iPhone or iPad, and finally deep depression, brought to you by the sudden realization that nothing in your life is real, not a goddamn iota, not a minute, not a mote, and if you do find a minute that's not owned by somebody, it's brought to you by Rolex. But don't worry, there's pills that can alleviate all of this. They're brought to you by Prozac. So, I was on Facebook yesterday. I was posting a note saying we need to show solidarity with the protesters in Wisconsin, because the governor is destroying unions with one flick of his pen, and lest we forget, unions brought us tiny, forgettable things like the weekend, the 9-to-5 workday, retirement with dignity, health care, an end to child labor, 24-hour strip clubs that serve breakfast. I think I made up that last one, but either way, they brought us significant advancements in the lives of average Americans, and just getting children out of the workplace alone was huge. I mean, because children are annoying and they're shitty workers, alright? They don't know how to operate a pneumatic press brake, no matter how many times they'll tell you otherwise. They're making mistakes all over the place, chopping off dudes' arms. What do you mean, whoopsie? You worked here 3 years since you were 5. You should have this shit down by now. Anyway, point being, unions are a crucial part of our society with a noble, brave history. Go read Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States and tell me otherwise. So I was posting about this on Facebook, and Facebook, correctly judging my emotional tone, recommended on the sidebar that I like the fan page for Angry Birds. Now, for those of you who don't know, Angry Birds is the iPad, iPhone video game in which you slingshot woeful, highly confused woodland creatures into piles of lumber and bricks, thereby making them go from baffled birds to angry birds, or at least frustrated birds. And I feel like this is representative of the mindscape of our country, and possibly all countries with internet, or Angry Birds. Right when we get involved with something that matters, something that could truly make a difference if enough of us just came together as one, we're told to veer over here or look over there, stop thinking about the wrongs being perpetrated around the world and instead focus on Guitar Hero or the Jersey Shore. The Egyptian revolution is, look, Dance Dance Revolution. The workers in Wisconsin are losing their right to, look, a homeless guy who can sing. The Iranian people are standing up against a brutal, look, someone who's married to someone who's on TV is preggers. So pay attention, people. Focus. Just this once. It's too important to be distracted right now, alright? We need to stand and unite with the birds, who are angry, who are furious. They're mad as hell, and they're not going to take it anymore because they've been shot into piles of bricks for no clear reason for far too long. No, but seriously, just this once, put politics aside and stand with the workers and the families in Wisconsin over the corporations. Because next it'll be your family and your job and your house and your child who doesn't know how to work the pneumatic press brake. Alright, if it's not already. And then you'll find yourself serving breakfast at a 24-hour strip club, wondering how we got here.
Fight like sheep, swallow everything, always simpletons or pretending.
Apparently, scientists are already capable of growing organs in the lab, which means we're only a few years away from being able to have all of our beef, pork, and chicken made in a laboratory. Basically, lab-grown meat would be just like meat from living animals, but without all the annoying guilt-inducing face or cuddliness. Kind of like what Kesha is as compared to Regina Spektor. You get the lab-grown meat without the confusion of a brain or personality. But whenever I talk to people about this, they go, I would never eat that shit. It's unnatural. Really? You find lab-grown meat more disgusting than taking a bolt gun to a cow's head, scooping away its disagreeable bits, and then carving up its still warm carcass to be mixed with 1 million lab-grown chemicals to create your Happy Meal? You think lab meat is more revolting than slitting Porky Pig's throat and letting him bleed out so that we can make our Dunkin' Donuts flatbread sausage patties? Full disclosure, I have once wanted to brutally drain the life from Porky Pig, but it was because I was on a 7-hour flight and the 3-year-old next to me was watching the same 8-minute cartoon on repeat for the entire trip. Turns out 3-year-olds do fit in the overhead carry-on bins. You just gotta fold them correctly. And it's not like you're only getting the good parts in most of your hamburgers. If you're lucky, everything in your hamburger helper once belonged to a cow, or at least something that passed itself off as a cow, like a wildebeest or a giant sloth or a hippo with a hat on. I mean, you think lab-grown meat is more repulsive than whatever industrial byproducts were forced together in some unholy alliance to give birth to cheese doodles? Or the WWE action figure leftover chemical paste that was used to create the nougat in your Three Musketeers candy bar. Not natural? Where exactly does nougat grow? I'd like to go nougat picking sometime on a brisk fall afternoon with friends and family. Just fill my basket with some farm fresh nougat while the kiddies ride on the tractor. Not natural? What's natural nowadays? Anything? Water? Look at the label. Look at the label on your bottle of Dasani purified water. It has sodium, magnesium sulfate, and potassium chloride in it. I think I also tasted a hint of nougat.
Fight like sheep, swallow everything, always simpletons or pretending.
There's still a lot of people out there who are against gay marriage, like violently against it. You know, they run around trying to give gay people self-help books on how to tone down the gay, or cover up the gay, or channel the gay into athletics or community service. And I'm sure all of that works like a charm. Yeah, he used to be gay, but now he's a hell of a softball player. Instead of hanging out with the boys, he's become a world-class Jenga competitor. There's just a lot of anti-gay feelings out there, and so I'll make you a deal. Everyone who wants to be anti-gay and lesbian, you go ahead and do that. But we're taking away from you everything in your life that is gay or gay-friendly or gay-like or gay-inspired or bisexual. You're not allowed near it. So that means no more Ellen DeGeneres show or Oprah or Lady Gaga or Madonna. No more Elton John or Michael Jackson. No more Rosie O'Donnell anything or professional wrestling. No more musicals or Dancing with the Stars. No more guys' night out or college fraternities. No more lifting weights at the gym with the other boys spotting you while you're sweating in a low-cut spandex shirt. No more movies starring Brad Pitt or Bruce Willis, The Rock, or that werewolf from the Twilight movies. And no more adults watching Twilight movies. No more Serena Williams, WNBA, or parades of any kind. No more watching college girls make out with each other, or dance together, or jump up and down in wet t-shirt contests together. Obviously no more gay weddings, but also no more straight weddings. Nothing's gayer than a straight wedding. I mean, you've got men crying and singing YMCA. No more field hockey for women or yoga for men. No more celebrating Halloween or getting haircuts. No more slow motion during football games, and no more shaving your balls. I don't care if you have a forest down there and it itches like bestiality with a porcupine. And finally, no more higher education. Plato came up with that, and he was gay. Although something tells me if you're a rabid homophobe, you probably don't have higher education anyway.
Fight like sheep, swallow everything, always simpletons or pretending.
If I had to pick a common theme out of the comments and emails I get concerning Moment of Clarity, it's people telling me they're just excited to see that they aren't alone. They're thrilled that someone else cares about this shit. And today's episode is simply to say, you're truly not alone. There are protests going on around the world showing that people are done being afraid of corporate warlords. Sure, the mainstream media won't cover this popular uprising. They're too busy covering the Fox News-created Klan bag rallies and the Botox being injected into a 5-year-old beauty queen. And if that beauty queen plays her cards right and lacks all intellectual curiosity and gets to the 3rd round of America's Got Talent when she's 19 and then puts out an album and then puts out a movie and then puts out for a producer and then starts a successful blog, she too can one day be a respected journalist on MSNBC or CNN as long as she makes sure to avoid any and all journalism training. The mainstream media can't cover this popular awakening because you realizing you have a voice and can make a difference fucking sucks for their ratings. Half the ads on news shows are for various pills to numb you to reality, knock you out, stamp out anger, depression, sexual frustration, and regular frustration, because those things often make you want to turn off the TV and demand a better world. And a better world is a punch to the dick for Nielsen ratings, and therefore drug companies, and therefore Wall Street. I don't know about you, but I'm buying stock in the companies that produce pitchforks, slingshots, and 2x4s, sacks of doorknobs, black spray paint, and baseball bats with rusty nails through them. I don't know what kind of fucked up company makes that shit, but I'm getting in on the ground floor. And then Wall Street will be happy because investors will be able to make a boatload of money just before they're run out of town. It's the invisible hand of the free market putting its thumb up its ass. But honestly, we could force the media to cover this shit, to cover Wisconsin and Ohio, to cover police choking and arresting activists because they're dancing at the Jefferson Memorial, to cover the Gorilla Drive-In movie we projected on the side of the Koch brothers theater in New York. How do we do it? Step 1, turn off your TV. Step 2, drop your pants. Step 3, take a dump on said TV. It'll be tougher if you've got a flat screen, but you'll be thankful later that you worked out the logistics. Next, get your news elsewhere from now on. Get it from Democracy Now! Or therealnews.com or truthout.org or Alternet. You're even better off getting it from a novel like 1984 or Catch-22. Hell, get it from the schizophrenic who lives under your stairs and figures out the weather by reading the chakra of his steamed okra. You can even get your news from a Glenn Beck book. Just read it backwards and upside down while inhaling varnish fumes. And how will this make CNN cover the protests? Mainstream media goes where the money is. As sure as a heavyset 19-year-old owns a vintage t-shirt with Yoshi on it, as sure as every missing white girl must have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, while every missing black girl must have been hanging out with the wrong type of people, as sure as employees at clothing stores think you look great in that, as sure as every recent college grad better know how to run a deep fryer and a milkshake machine, as sure as the tattoo of that Chinese symbol on your arm is gonna feel a little awkward when China purchases our Federal Reserve. The mainstream media will go where the ratings and the money are, like an American 8-year-old to his asthma inhaler. But whether they cover it or not, you are not alone. There are millions of us who can't see a future in the way things are going, who regardless of political affiliation are, first and foremost, anti-corporate ownership of our society, and who are willing to stand up and let it be known. So the final step to this plan, talk to people. Don't argue with them about the smaller issues. We can wait until later to sort out whether the ever-dangerous sugary candy should be allowed in the high school vending machine next to the Plan B pills and the extra AK-47 clips. Instead of doing that shit, simply tell people that corporations don't care about men or women or children. They only care about money, and then if they have a little time left over, money. And like a shirtless hair gel conduit in a Twilight movie, corporations are sucking the lifeblood out of us and leaving us with nothing to show for it but a pillaged society and a fiery case of gonorrhea. And those corporations own our lives and our political system. Tell people this and I'll bet you, you'll find an impressive number agree with you. And the truth is, the topic will come up anyway, because they'll wonder why your television smells like shit, and you'll say, The Bachelorette was just on. You're not alone. You're not alone. Happy people. What the fuck is going on in your life where you can smile that much? Have you looked around? Have you looked outside? There are nuclear radiation, hailstorm, tornado quakes hitting your town right now. The economy sucks and you're happy? How can you be happy? 1 out of every 5 people in the world live on less than $1 per day. But European cows, because of farm subsidies, get paid $2.20 a day. Cows get paid more than 1/5 of the world's population. Stop smiling. The Food and Drug Administration in this country allows the marketing of things like antidepressants to children. They allow aspartame, which is also known as equal sweetener, even though it can cause seizures and death. And yet they required one company to recall all of its eggnog because it didn't list egg as one of the ingredients. Stop fucking smiling. The maximum jail sentence in the U.S. for willful safety violations causing the death of a worker is 6 months in jail. The maximum sentence for harassing a wild donkey on federal lands is 1.5 years longer than that. Stop smiling. Anyway, that's your moment of clarity for today. Tell people to watch this shit so that we can stamp out happiness. Help me. I can't do this alone, alright? There's happy people walking around out there right now. Help me. Tell people to look at this shit.
Fight like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending.
You know what makes me perhaps the most scared about our country? It's not the joblessness or the innocent men on death row or the children in far-off lands making the sweaters our dogs are wearing. None of that. It's the fact that in this greatest of lands, war criminals sell books. It's undeniable. War criminals sell a shit ton of books. Even while the publishing industry is burning in the toasty digital flames of an e-reader bonfire, war criminals still move units. George Bush, Donald Rumsfeld, Karl Rove, and don't worry, Dick Cheney's is coming. Oh, it's coming. Too many to list, and the more women and kids you've blown up, the longer the line is of people clamoring to see just how you did it. Nowadays, the only books that make the bestseller list are by either someone in the Bush administration or zombies. And it's tough to say which wreak more havoc on mankind. But Karl Rove had the golden formula: just be both. I've self-published a couple of sad little books when I was younger, and I tried a lot of different ways to market them, but I never thought of being a war criminal. It didn't occur to me. I considered flyers to promote the book, posters, aggressive MySpacing, but never genocide, indiscriminate bombing, or torture. For some odd reason, those never entered my head. I guess that's my problem, a failure of imagination, a failure to really think big. But you gotta wonder about a civilization that creates deathmongers, and then once they're done raining destruction down on people, we buy their books to see just how they did it. How did they go about such evil? That's what we do with our war criminals. We don't execute them or imprison them. We send them to stand in front of 50 people in folding chairs in a Barnes & Noble in Branson, Missouri, so they can tell their lies on a more intimate basis. Which brings up a question. How do you think Donald Rumsfeld is signing the book covers for his adoring fans? Do you think he goes with the motivational approach like, thanks for buying the book, don't forget, keep your feet on the ground, and f*** the brown countries? Or do you think Rummy goes with the more humorous approach, you know? Thanks for buying my book. It's packed full of WMD. Writing most delicious. Keep the dream alive. Love, Don. I suppose it could be worse. These merchants of death could instead be putting out albums. That would be truly horrific, watching Anderson Cooper ask Dick Cheney whether Limp Bizkit was a big influence on him. But on the other hand, I think Robert Mugabe's techno LP would have been a huge hit. Point being, don't buy Donald Rumsfeld's book. Don't let your friends buy his book. Wait for the movie, which will star a vampire and Jerry Stiller and have a trailer that begins in a world where being a war criminal is a great PR stunt. So, I'm throwing this question out there to all of you. How do you think Rummy is signing the books to his fanboys? Either leave your idea in a comment or Twitter it and do @LeeCamp. Thanks.
Fight like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending.